the interesting thing is I didn't ever intend to write a memoir. I did want to write a book for a very long time, and I wanted to write a book about movements, and particularly movements related to justice issues, racial justice at its core, because not only was that my life, because it was so formative for me, because my parents were active in the civil rights movement, because I grew up in a family that in our early years, you know, picket lines and rallies and my father behind a bullhorn was literally our family activity. It weren't picnics, there were pickets. And that was so much of what shaped me, and growing up knowing what movement times felt like, but also knowing that there were periods where it felt like we were getting back to movement times. I wanted people to understand how much of a history of struggle fed even the activism we were seeing, like Fight for 15 and Black Lives Matter, and that it wasn't a hashtag. It was work that had been happening and organizing that had been happening over generations that kept finding new leaders and new struggle and new ways of trying to capture the national imagination to make change. And so I was going to write, as someone who was also in academia, what was a pretty academic book, but trying to write it for a lay audience about what social movements were and how to understand the hashtags. And so for a long time I was thinking about this and kind of planning it. And I took this to actually a wonderful book editor, Vicki Wilson at Knopf, and she just said, "Tell me about your family." So I started talking about my family because I was explaining why this social movements, what I wanted to bring to a book about social movements. And she just looked at me and she said, "You're dissociating." And I thought, how rude. And then she said more, and she said, "No, your book is about your mother. Your book is about your parents. Your book is about your family." And it was one of those kind of epiphanies where it took a while for it to hit me truly, because I was a little bit resistant. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized, no, the reason I cared so much about this book was because it was so personal. And actually, in a world where Donald Trump had become president and where we were so divided and where we weren't getting all our information from the same places, it also felt so much more important to tell personal stories, to make personal connections to issues, not make them academic, and for people to feel more and to feel each other more. And that's how it became a memoir. So it was really late in the game that it became a memoir. It was really going to be a very different book. And I'm just very grateful to Vicki Wilson for being rude to me, because she was right.